Low clouds and fog will burn off to some sun, but watch for a late shower or thunderstorm. Highs from 78 to 85.
Plus, we'll meet two Long Islanders who are helping to run the Olympic torch to its Atlanta destination.
In the news today, containers of potentially dangerous materials.
That's what emergency response teams found on the property of a Bellport homeowner. News 12's Danielle Campbell is standing by in Bellport with the very latest. Danielle.
Penny, and what we know at this point was 5 canisters of radioactive material were found here at 5 Sundial Lane in Bellport. The material has been brought to Stony Brook University, where it will be kept in a safe place. I have with me Mona Rowe from the U.S. Department of Energy today. Usually she's from Brookhaven Labs. And basically you had a team that came down here to oversee the radioactive site and make sure that this was safe for the public.
Our part in this was to make sure the radioactive material was safe and that there was no contamination from it, because that's the job of this group. It's the Radiological Assistance Program. It's a federal program set up to protect the public from radiation.
And there was no leaks, no public health threat?
No leaks, no contamination. We've surveyed the area, we've surveyed over and over, and the material is now gone. We surveyed again, and everything's just fine.
Okay. I don't know if the folks caught a glimpse of what was being taken out of this house, but handfuls of rifles and other weapons we've been seeing are being taken out by police. We don't exactly know what is going on as far as how this all ties into the radioactive material. The Suffolk County DA's office all they'll tell us is that this is an ongoing criminal investigation. They'll have a press conference later in the day to tell us exactly what's going on. However, as you can see, there were weapons taken out of this house, radioactive material was found, and of course this is a very unusual situation in a neighborhood like this one. In Bellport, Danielle Campbell, News 12 Long Island. Now back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Danielle. Assault charges being filed today against a second suspect in the West Hampton Beach.
Sundial Lane in Bellport have now been removed to Stony Brook University, where there is apparently a facility that can store that type of material. The situation is basically the Suffolk County DA's office is not giving us too much information. They said that this is an ongoing criminal investigation. We did see pictures of the radioactive material. As you can see, the scene is now cleaned up. But just moments ago, before everybody pulled out of here, an arsenal of weapons were also removed from this house along with the radioactive material. Several agencies were on hand: the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, Suffolk County Police Department, Suffolk County Health Department, as well as the U.S. Department of Energy, which came down very early in the morning, about 1 o'clock, and surveyed the site to make sure that none of the radioactive material had been released or was leaking, and they found that the site was clear and that did not occur. Basically, we don't have much information as to why police got a tip that this was in the home. There is a press conference scheduled apparently for later this afternoon, and we should get more details about that. We've heard about arrests, but nothing has been confirmed. So basically, that's the story now. Danielle Campbell, News 12 Long Island. Now back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Danielle. In other news, police are pointing a finger at a second suspect in the West Hampton Beach beating. 25-year-old Austin Offen of Floral Park is to be arraigned this morning. Prosecutors now say they believe Offen is the one who actually beat 21-year-old Shane Daniels, while City Detective Constantine Cronus held onlookers back with a...
This is News 12 Long Island. Now, the afternoon edition,
where Suffolk DA James Catterson and Suffolk Republican Chairman John Powell. News 12's Brendan Higgins is standing by at the Suffolk DA's office with more on this breaking story. Brendan.
Patty, and law enforcement sources indeed have confirmed that they have arrested 2 men involved in the bizarre conspiracy to murder Suffolk County DA James Catterson and Suffolk Republican head John Powell.
Authorities unloaded an arsenal of weapons, mortar, and radioactive material from this home in Bellport this morning. 48-year-old John Ford owns the house. He is now in police custody, charged with conspiracy to commit murder. At least 1 other man is in custody as well. Police believe Suffolk County Republican head John Powell and Suffolk DA James Catterson were targets of the conspiracy plot. Powell was in his home this morning under close police supervision. No possible motive has surfaced yet. This neighbor of Ford told us the alleged conspirator was a good neighbor who had a fascination with UFOs.
He's into space and everything like that, UFOs, and he lost his mother at the beginning of the year, so and he lives alone.
In fact, News 12 interviewed Ford about UFOs in December of '94. Now he meets the press for a far more serious reason.
Now, Powell's attorney, Peter Kramer, told us today that police believe that the two men wanted to use the radioactive material radium in their efforts to kill the district attorney and the Republican Party head. There were 50 rifles, or anywhere between 30 and 50 rifles found, and assorted ammunition and mortar, but they believe that it was the radioactive material that they were going to use. Obviously, much more coming up on this, Patty Ann.
That's right, Brendan. As you say, lots of unanswered questions. Do we have any idea when the police are going to be able to give us more on this?
Well, obviously, this is a touchy situation. They say they're going to hold a press conference at 1 o'clock today when they'll be able to give us some more of details in this bizarre case.
Bizarre it is. Thanks again, Brendan Higgins. In other news, a second suspect is being booked in connection with the West Hampton Beach.
Will be arraigned this afternoon. We will request that no bail be set because of the gravity of the offense, and the matter will be presented to a Suffolk County grand jury. I underscore on a threat assessment that the plot was only in the planning stages. However, the investigation will continue because of other allegations that were made during the meeting, and we're still following up on. Seized from Mr. Ford's house, which was heavily barricaded, covered by electronic devices, was a variety of weaponry, most of which you can see before you and around you. Many of them are legal long rifles, but the collection of such a large amount, plus the ammunition, plus handguns and other paraphernalia, certainly caused one to believe the intent behind the conversations that were overheard. I have today also with us representatives of Brookhaven National Laboratory. I've always said it's one of the prized assets of Suffolk County that the labs are located here, and I asked them to come to answer questions regarding the potential health problems incidental to such thing. But before I bring any of them on, I would like to say we also seized 5 canisters of radioactive material. Primarily, we believe it to be radium isotopes, and we'll leave that to the expert to describe it. They were contained in lead containers. We have one of them here. I don't know what we did with it. I'll pick it up in a second. Oh, here he is. I'm glad you're picking it up, my friend, because you don't want to do curls with this. What do you think this weighs? 25. It's about a 25, it's a little more than 25 pounds, 25-pound lead shield in which this is one size. It was a larger size, as I understand, about the size of a large coffee can. And there were smaller canisters. And we'll discuss where they potentially, the sources of these. We haven't yet ascertained what the sources are, and also what the health risk is to that. I will assure you all that there is no health risk to the people either of Bellport or the surrounding communities. We've ascertained that the lead shields are protecting the material. That's how you would handle it in an appropriate manner. I don't want anyone to get the concept that we have, in this case, radioactive material at risk to the community. What I will say, however, is that if it turns up here, we really have to be on the guard as to future evidences of the proliferation of this type of material. The plot was literally something out of a novel, where an individual so obsessed with hatred for mainstream political figures would solicit people to spread radioactive material on the seat of his car, in his food, or in some proximity to him, in the hope that over a period of time he would contract incurable diseases and cause his death. If that was not successful, other things were contemplated, including the use of firearms. And it's interesting that in the conversations that were recorded, the individual portrays an obsessive hatred for the individuals concerned, which raises the threat level to the point that it must be taken quite seriously. With us today is Michael Holland, Director of the Nuclear Programs Division, U.S. Department of Energy, who is stationed at Brookhaven National Laboratories. I thank you for coming. We have Mona Rowe, who is from the Public Relations Office and a spokesperson for the lab. And we have Alan Kishner, who is of the RAD Assistance Program at the lab, who can handle the technical questions that any of you may have. All right, now let's start with the back end first. Are there any questions with regard to the radiological materials and any questions pertinent to that?
What's the worst can be done with these radioactive materials? What's the worst case scenario?
You want to come over here, Michael? Please.
If you could say your name and spell it.
Sure. Michael Holland, Holland. I'm with the U.S. Department of Energy at the Brookhaven Group. I'm the Director of the Nuclear Programs Division. These isotopes that were found in these shielded containers would pose no immediate health effect to anyone. There was a dose rate, as we refer to it, that was emitted from them, but we were able to safely package them up and transport them to Stony Brook University Hospital, where in cooperation with the New York State Department of Health, those isotopes will be characterized and identified.
But in terms of a worst case scenario, someone wanting to use that for evil, what could they do?
If it got on your skin or if it could be inhaled in any way, what is the damage that could be done?
If the containers were open and the materials were used such as to be placed in the proximity of an individual, such as in their car on the seat, where they would sit on that material for an extended period of time, over that period of time, what would result is a very serious skin burn. If the material was ingested somehow, over the long term, there would be health effects to that individual.
Like what?
I'm not really qualified to say.
What are you calling these isotopes? Is it radium?
We believe that in two of the canisters that we analyzed, that the isotope that was present is radium. Not all of the canisters have been analyzed to show that they are all radium.
Could it prove fatal?
Not in the short term. It would take an extremely long time to receive a fatal dose.
How long? When you say an extended time, the skin irritation could result. What is an extended time? Is it a week? Is it several hours?
Weeks.
Would it cause cancer? Is that linked to cancer?
There is a possibility, again, over the long term, that cancer could develop, yes.
Is what you're saying similar to like a radiation sickness that one might get if they were exposed to radiation?
Given an exposure of long enough duration, yes, there could be some radiation sickness.
Where did those materials come from?
We don't know at this time.
If radium is, when it's opened and spread, you cannot tell it's there? Is it invisible to the eye? There's no glow to it? Or?
No, it doesn't glow. At this point, I don't think we are really sure what form all of the materials are in, whether they are completely solid or they're liquid. I think Alan might be able to answer what it would look like.
I'm Alan Keener, Kuehner. Close to the mics. The question is, what would it look like? It typically would be a fine powder, and it could be hazardous in amounts that you wouldn't notice. We know that these packages were not opened. There was no evidence of contamination, which we would have easily seen if they'd been opened and spread around at all. So they had not opened the packages, opened the inner containers to expose anyone.
Now, Mr. Keener, let me just help me clarify. You take a test of the closed container with a meter, and you get a reading. Is that correct?
Right.
And come close. And